I'm just thinking about YouTube and what's important to me here and why I do this and what is it I value and why I keep doing it after 5 years and 2,500 videos. And you know, like a lot of people, I get pissed off with it sometimes and think, oh, I'm going to fuck off and leave, and then you know, I find myself attracted to the situation again and contributing. So I'm just trying to figure out what it is I like and what it is that pisses me off. And I think, you know, I'm going to borrow a phrase here that that Piero uses quite a bit, which is the idea of the public conversation. I mean, that's one of the things that keeps me coming back, the public conversation. The fact that I say something and you say something back, or you nod your head, or you shake your head, or you click on another video. There's some kind of a response, you know, and it's a horizontal conversation for the most part. I'm going to come back to that. It's not the kind of conversation where I just cast things into the ether and hope the media will listen to me saying things, or the media casts things down to me and I'm allowed to chat with my fellow plebs about the offerings, you know, on the BBC website or whatever. It's a lateral playing field here, level playing field, and the conversation can take place laterally amongst equals, which I really like. And the fact that it's public, you know, the fact that other people can hear the conversations that other people are having. It's a leaky conversation, like a good cocktail party conversation. You can kind of hear what people are saying around you, and that can be distracting, but at the same time, that's to me, that's a really rich system. That's where the brain works, isn't it? Quorum sensing. If enough people are talking about it, the general atmosphere around us all becomes saturated with a certain level of this topic, and then it becomes more and more widely discussed. It's a public conversation, we're all listening in, and that's a really rich and enticing thing to me, and stimulating on a personal level, but I find it intellectually stimulating as well. And the fact that the conversation can take so many different forms. You know, it doesn't have to be polite. It doesn't have to be conducted in the same language. Most of the conversation is like this, of course, with one person talking usually in English to another person, or to another group of people, and being responded to in like manner. But it's not necessarily like that, is it? We could be talking in different languages. We could be talking in the language of the visual and the musical and the performative and the choreographic. You know, there's lots of videos on here videos by people I know and admire and like, or dislike, doesn't matter. But they're operating in languages which are very, very different. You know, they're operating in languages of image and the visual and the musical and so on. I really like that. And as I say, this doesn't have to be a polite conversation. It can take all kinds of different forms. It can be a battle, can't it? Or it can be a dance. So it can be dancing with you in a conversation. Or it can be a debate. Or it can be a free-for-all with lots and lots of other people getting involved. It can be a relay race where I can be passing something on to you and you take it and pass it on to someone else. Again, conversation in public. I love all that. And I think it's so enticing and so interesting and challenging. But there are always threats to it, and that's what concerns me a lot. And what pisses me off. What pisses me off sometimes is the fact that the conversation just seems to fall flat, as it probably would anyway. You know, sometimes you feel like you're talking to yourself, don't you? Or sometimes you feel like everyone's just looking after their own end of the conversation, and no one really wants to listen to one another. But I can kind of put up with that. That's fine for a while. But there are several things which piss me off, not because they're not enervating, but because they're actually destructive. And the things that piss me off most about YouTube are the things which threaten the conversation and weaken it and make it stupider. And some of those come from Google, of course. You know, I've talked about that before. Changes in the way the layout works, changes in the functionality of the site, changes in the way the algorithm brings up one of those videos, just things like that. I think does threaten the conversation at times, weaken it, make it less interesting, make it less level, hierarchize the conversation sometimes. But it also comes from ourselves. You know, we don't always behave in a way which is productive to the maintenance and sustaining of the conversation in general. And by that I don't mean that we're rude to each other. I don't mean that at all. Sometimes rudeness is fine. If I'm talking to you and we're having a robust conversation, I may well call you names and you may well call me names back. And that to me is fine. That's just a different language code, isn't it? So it's not about that kind of thing. It's not about rudeness. It's to do with things that threaten the status of the conversation. So for example, a couple of examples actually. One person that I was watching this morning, I'll name his names, Vertical Cadence, who's only been on YouTube about 3 or 4 months, makes very well produced videos, forwarding kind of atheist ideas, but always politely. He's going to pull his channel because he's being threatened to have his docs dropped, but which, of course you know this, but that just means that his private identity will be made public. And that can make a huge difference, in that particular case, if I understand it correctly. He lives in a situation where his family and friends and acquaintances and workmates, I guess, are fundamentalist Christians largely. And if his online activities were made known, then that would prejudice his situation, he's in real life. And that's just wrong, isn't it? That's wrong. I mean, it's all very well talking about openness and transparency, but in many cases, people have good reasons why they might want to keep parts, or sometimes large parts of their online life and their offline life separate. And they should have the right to do that. And if people aren't given that right, then the conversation becomes weakened and threatened. Vertical Cadence will no longer be able to take part in the conversation because he's effectively having to remove himself from it. And not only that, it weakens the system overall. If we're all party to one another's threats, and we're all operating in an atmosphere of, oh, I better be careful what I say because such and such might release my personal information, or contact my family or my employer, or whatever, my local council. If we're always operating in that kind of a climate, then the conversation is necessarily going to take place in hushed tones, if it takes place at all. We'll self-censor. But there's other things that threaten it as well. Again, just this morning I had to block someone on my channel. Or was it last night? Last night. I had to block someone on my channel. Again, I blocked them a while ago, but I usually clear out my block list every couple of weeks. Cleaned this person out and they started posting on my channel again. Even though I know full well that they're saying really horrible things about me and about things that people I care about elsewhere on the tubes. They not talking to me directly, just making snidey remarks and critical comments and pretty vile things elsewhere. Now of course they're entitled to do that, but again that weakens the conversation because it lowers the overall levels of trust. I know that person can't be trusted. I know they will say things about me, and they're probably said things about me that I don't know about. Obviously I only know about little bits I come across. So I just think, this piece of person is being polite to me on my comment section, but I know elsewhere they're being really derogatory about me. So that just lowers the level of trust in the environment. And again, an environment that's got low levels of trust is not going to have good conversation in it. Who would want to disclose information if you think that someone's going to use that information to say bad things about you elsewhere? It's not going to happen, is it? So again, that's something that lowers the level of conversation. The last thing is a bit more complicated actually. I'm not sure, I haven't really thought into this properly. But I was watching a video by JaclynGlenn, I think she's called, who is a kind of, low wattage entertainer here. She's got 40-odd thousand subscribers, introductions, lots of links in the description box of all her videos to her Instagram, her Tumblr, her Facebook page. She's one of the, I guess she's probably network partnered. She's one of, a lot of people here who are trying to use YouTube as an income source, and that's fine. And so we're presenting videos in that kind of style with an aim to achieve the small amount of celebrity and popularity that's available to us here, with, I guess, making a living on the back of it. But the reason why I'm mentioning is that she was talking to, or responding to, a video by another YouTube user who has 49 subscribers. JaclynGlenn has got 48,000. This person has 49 subscribers. The person she was responding to is clearly not involved at all in the social media, entertainment, partnership, career path thing at all. It's a very, very lo-fi vlog this chap had done, with a very small number of views, of course. So I'm thinking, what kind of a conversation is that? That isn't a conversation at all. That's there's such a hierarchy, that they're there for such different motivations. There's such a different ambition being worked toward in those two videos, that there's no conversation taking place at all. I mean, she effectively pawns this guy. Maybe he deserves it, maybe he didn't. I don't think he did. But you know, what is someone with 48,000 subscribers doing, pawning what seemed to be a really sweet guy, actually, completely inoffensive, pawning a guy like that with 49 subscribers? It's not conversation, is it? That's not conversation at all. It's using vlog as content. It's using it's effectively, yeah, it's appropriating someone else's. I see, I've got to be careful. It's not really appropriating their material. I'm not talking about any kind of DMCA thing. But it takes the form of a conversation. It looks like she's responding to him, but she's not really. She's using him as an excuse to have a bit of a rant and to appeal to her subscribers. So that's not conversation either, because it subverts the idea of it by, you know, working it across such an asymmetrical relationship. So yeah, that's all I've got right now. Anyhow, yeah, conversation. That's my main reason to be here. Conversation in all its forms. The fact that it doesn't have to be polite. There does have to be a set of negotiations that take place. There does have to be a certain kind of respect for difference, it seems to me. But there are some cardinal rules which you can't break. You can piss one another off all you like, but don't damage the environment itself. And you damage the environment by stepping outside it to other sources of authority, by dropping docs or doing something like it, by engaging in massive betrayals of trust, by reinforcing asymmetric relationships that destabilise what a conversation even is in the first place. Isn't that conversation going on between those dogs? That's what it sometimes sounds like here on YouTube. Yeah, look at that, isn't that gorgeous? What a complex set of structures, look. Beautiful.